So let's start with a new chapter, that is Unit 8, Devotional Part to the Divine. Now in this chapter we will be studying about the Bhakti movement and the Sufi movement. Now you have already studied about the Bhakti movement in class 6, that is the worship of the deity, and it can be in different forms of worship. That is, it can be in the form of prayers, it can be in the form of song, dance, it can be in the form of lyrics, or it can be in the form of shloks. So that is what is the Bhakti movement, and how you praise or how you want to see your deity, he comes in that particular form. So that was about the Bhakti movement. Now in this chapter we will be seeing about the different important saints of the Bhakti and the Sufi movement and how they took forward the Bhakti and the Sufi movement. So you may have seen people perform rituals of worships of singing bhajans, kirtan, kavalis, different forms, and this is how they by singing, by dancing, by music, how they reach to God. So the idea of supreme God, okay? So they can be different God or formless God or the divine. So before large kingdoms emerged, different groups of people worshipped their own god and goddesses. Now in the early times, in the early man, they used to worship not there were no idols, or there was so they used to worship who they were afraid of, like. They used to worship sun, stars, planets, trees, even animals, even thunder and lightning. So was their form of worship. Now as people were brought together through the growth of town traders and empires, new ideas began to develop. The ideas of living being passed through countless cycles of birth. So they believe in birth, rebirth. And it was widely accepted also that it depends totally on how your deeds are, like as we call as a karma, right? So how your deeds are and how you are to the other people, that is what will decide your rebirth and how it will be. So similarly, the idea of all human beings began not only equal at the time they gained around during the period, but they believed that social privileges that came from the birth, that means the hierarchy or the descendant or the noble family, or the high class or the high caste, was subjected to many learned texts. So many people were uneasy such ideas during the teaching of Buddha or the Jains. They don't believe in this, right? They believe in doing your duties and doing your karma. So it was totally a different kind of belief. So that according to it was possible to overcome social differences and to break the cycle of rebirth through personal effort. Yes, you can do personal effort. It means how you behave, or how you behave with the other people, or how you talk to other people, how you give respect to them. It totally depends. Your rebirth totally depend on that. So there is nothing life after. That means you have to do everything good here so that you get a better rebirth or a better life. So God, Supreme God, others felt attracted to the idea of the Supreme God who could deliver humans from such bondage of approach with devotion of bhakti. This idea advocated the Bhagavad Gita grew in popularity in the early centuries of the Common Era. So the Shiva, the Vishnu and the Durga, they were the supreme deities that were worshipped, came to worship within elaborate rituals were performed to worship these deities. And there were different areas came to be identified in which identify with Shiva, Vishnu and Durga. So in the process there were local myths, there were legends, and they were part of the Quranic stories from the Bhagavad Gita or from the Ramayana or from the Mahabharata about the grace of God, about how these cults were organized, how these rituals were followed, and possible to devotees to receive grace. Now, if you follow these cults and if you follow these rituals, you get the grace of God. So, regardless of their status. So, the idea of bhakti became so popular, even Buddhists and Jains adopted these beliefs. So, it was believing, the total belief of bhakti is that you don't have to follow a certain ritual or a cult. It is you can worship your deity or your image of a deity, how you feel in your heart, in the way you want to. You can sing, you can dance, you can you can say shloks, you can say bhajans, you can say kavalis, and that is how you can reach God, or you can get the grace of God. That was the idea of the supreme God in the bhakti movement, or of the worship of the supreme. So there was a new kind of bhakti in the South India. There were the Nayanars and the Alvars. Okay, so they were the Narayanars or the Alvars. The Narayanars were the devotee to Shiva, and the Alvars were the devotees to Vishnu. So that is how they were two sects that were divided, the Narayanars and the Alvars. So they led to who came in the all castes, including those considered untouchables, like the Pulayars and the Parnars. They were sharply critical of the Buddhists and the Jains, and they were preached ardent love for Shiva or Vishnu as a path of salvation. So they drew upon the ideas of love and heroism from the Sangam literature. You all know about the Sangam literature. That means it was compiled in a meeting, in association where all the poets gathered together and they compiled the Sangam literature in the Tamil language. So they blended them into values of bhakti, and the Narayanas and the Alvars went from place to place composing exquisite poem and the praise of the deity and the village and the visited, and how they can go, those can be put up into lyrics and songs. So they were basically in the southern India, they were the Narayanas and the Alvars. Now between the 10th and the 12th century, there were the Cholas. You all know about the three great kingdoms in the southern India, the Chera, Cholas and the Pandyas. Now they made elaborate, big, beautiful, exquisite and intricate temples and shrines, and there were saint poets strengthening the link between the bhakti tradition and the temple worship. So they also had time to the poems they compiled beside hagiographies. Now what is this hagiographies? It's writing of the saint lives, about writing of the saints, about knowing about a particular saint, how he became a saint, how he spread the word of God and the religions, and the writing about the Alvars and the Narayanars, who were composed in a hagiographies, that means writing of saints' lives. So today they use these texts as a source of writing histories and the bhakti traditions. This is how we come to know so many people about the bhakti traditions. Like there was Shankaracharya, there was Mirabai, there was the Surdas, there was Kalidas, there was so many different other the Ramanuj, there were so many different others saints who we know about from this writing, from the hagiography where they write the life of the saints. So the philosophy of bhakti. Now the Shankaracharya was one of the most influential philosopher of that particular time in India, and he was born in Kerala in the 8th century. He was the advocate Advaita, that means doctrine of oneness of an individual soul and the supreme God. That means Advaita means there's nothing, apart from that, from the soul of human and the connection to God, to the supreme God, which is ultimate reality. So that means there is nothing matters, not even your body, because it's all destructible. The only thing that matters is your soul and the connection to your supreme God. So that was the ultimate reality that he taught. And he believed in this formless God. Yeah, because the soul doesn't have any form, so it is also a formless thing. So the only ultimate reality was formless and without any attributes. He considered that the world around is a illusion or a maya or a mirage. That means there is nothing. It's all destructible. It all can be destroyed. The only thing that remains is your soul. That is something that is formless. Even God. And he preached renunciation and the world that adoption, the path of knowledge to understand the true nature of Brahmana and attain salvation. So you can attain salvation, the bhakti, when you become close to or become one with the Supreme God. That is how you will attain renunciation or enlightenment or salvation. And then next was Ramanuj, who was born in Tamil Nadu in the 11th century and deeply influenced by the Alvars. According to him, the attaining salvation was through the devotion to one God, that is Vishnu, and his grace and devotees to attain the bliss of union with him. He propounded the doctrine of Vishvadita and qualified oneness in the soul even when united with the Supreme God. Remain distinct. Ramanuja's doctrine greatly inspired the new stands of Bhakti which developed in North India subsequently. So he also propounded the faith of Vishwaditya. Again, the same thing is that being oneness with God. Exceptionally, that means the whole world. Vishwaditya means the whole world or qualified oneness with the soul even when united with the Supreme God. So they were the two great philosophers of southern India who followed the Advaita, the Shankaracharya and Vishwaditya Ramanuj. So this was the first part of the chapter. I will be explaining you second part of this chapter in your second video.